Hello there, welcome to another week of the Premier League Weekly on the Phoenix Club. I'm Josh, joined once again by Tom. So, Tom, I'm assuming after that 5-0 drubbing of Huddersfield, you're doing rather well this week.
I'm feeling a lot better than last week, let's put it that way. And it's not the night after the game, which was pretty horrible, recording a couple of days after. But there's still problems with the club, but we're getting better.
Well, I'm certainly doing well. Firstly, after United beat Leicester, we'll come on to that in just a moment. But first of all, West Ham holding Liverpool, the table toppers, at the London Stadium. So what did you make of that game?
I approve of West Ham doing the rest of the league a favour.
The rest of the world a favour, I think.
I apologise, I'm not completely impartial, Liverpool fans. I love your team, I love Klopp, but football Twitter, if you guys win the league, would just be horrible. Sorry. And I try to be impartial when I talk about the games. But I think with respect to Liverpool, they probably didn't have the best game they could have. They didn't take the chances. And I thought West Ham were really, really good. I think Pellegrini's doing a really nice job with them. And they're really well organised and able to put some pressure on the big teams.
Do you think that Jurgen Klopp was right to loan Nathaniel Klein out to Bournemouth? Do you think it was maybe a bit of arrogance, complacency? Because Liverpool haven't got the best squad depth and they're being found out for it now.
I think that's a bit harsh. I think if Klein was desperate to leave or play regular football, I don't think you can blame him. And I don't think you can blame Klopp for loaning him out. I agree, maybe they should have got a replacement in, but I'm not sure any replacement would have been particularly much better than what they had.
Milner looks so out of place at right back. I know he's been having a stint at left back recently, but he was just so poor at right back.
Yeah, he was, and I'm not trying to deny that, but I think who would they have got in the January window to replace Klein? I mean, as I say, if Klein wasn't desperate to go, then maybe that's different. And I'm not sure we can say what's happening inside a club. But basically, yeah, Liverpool's squad depth isn't great, but they're only fighting on two fronts. Well, obviously, the proof will be in the pudding at the end of the season, whether they've won anything.
On to Pellegrini at West Ham. What a result for them. They've beaten United, and now they've drawn with table toppers Liverpool. Is this a sign of things to come for West Ham? Because they had a really poor start to the season. They've slowly built their way up now. Do you think that they could even maybe push for cementing a place in the top half of the table? Or maybe even are they going to think maybe more long term and perhaps be content with maybe just being around 12th, 13th, 14th?
I think West Ham, and I think this is a reason for Pellegrini to be credited, they're a really, really unstable club. And the fact that they had such a poor start, Pellegrini will have been under pressure after I think it was their first 6 games. They hadn't won or something like that. The fact then Arnautovic asks to go, doesn't show to training, and he's kept the results steady, a good shape, a good style of football, and they're nowhere near relegation. I think that's a huge feather in the cap of Pellegrini. I don't think their club will be too worried this season what happens, because he's got a lot of new players at the start of the year and he is probably building for the long term. I think next season they'll be looking at top half, maybe even 7th place if they can bring in some good players there. But regardless, I think all the credit has to go to Pellegrini for the result yesterday. And it shows he doesn't just do it with talented Man City players.
That's a good point, yeah.
Can do it at a mid-table club. I was a bit sceptical of him.
Yeah, I was too, actually, even at West Ham.
But I have to eat my cap because I think he's done really well this season.
Yeah, going back to Liverpool for a second, and this is perhaps a question more appropriate for the retro show, which you should definitely check out tomorrow, which is
Sure.
Is this Liverpool side going to be more reminiscent of the side from 1990 or from the 80s or from 13-14? That's to say, are they going to go all the way, or is results like this draw against West Ham a blip or a sign of things to come?
Well, I did say last week that there was an 80 to 90% chance they were going to win the league. And I'm going to stick to that, actually. I think West Ham away, I'm not sure too many of the big clubs have beaten West Ham away this year. I know Chelsea didn't. Man United
We
didn't.
lost.
Um, I don't know about Man City, if they've had that fixture yet. They may have. But regardless, I think people are reading probably too much into one bad result. Wasn't a terrible result. They didn't lose. And with injuries at right back, I think people are sort of going into these meltdown stories. I think they're still very well set to go and win the league.
I think the question marks surrounding Liverpool were the fact of the lack of squad depth and the fact that their players maybe was showing signs of shutting down a little bit maybe. But going from a squad that's lacking squad depth, a squad that's certainly swimming in it, Manchester United, the mighty Red Devils here, 1-0 on the surface away at Leicester, maybe fans were expecting a bit more after recent displays. But
Great
I
result.
still massively rate Claude Puel. He's done a remarkable job with Leicester. I think he did really well with Southampton, actually. Again, unfairly to be sacked by the Saints. But do you think that that's enough for United to push into that top four? Only 2 points behind Chelsea, and certainly considering where United were when Solskjaer took over, what was it, 8 points off Chelsea off the top four, and now it's only two. So, do you think that there's still a good chance that Chelsea will drop out and that United will take that fourth spot, or do you think that maybe Chelsea are just too good still?
Firstly, I think 1-0 away at Leicester is an excellent result. I think any win away at Leicester is a great result. Leicester are hard to beat, albeit not perhaps a brilliant side as per the Premier League past or present. But United were really gritty, played a really nice away performance, won 1-0. As for Puel, I think it's hard to judge him because I can see why he's unpopular with his club's fans sometimes because they beat a lot of the big clubs and do well and then have really poor games against smaller clubs. And that's why I can't see him coming above probably ninth or eighth this season. But yeah, United are really giving themselves the best chance they can at top four this season, particularly if Chelsea do start to challenge for the Europa League and think that their best shot is through that. Same deal with Arsenal, by the way. Can I see United overtaking Chelsea? I think probably only if Chelsea do shift to the Europa League and play pretty weak sides in the Prem. As much as I think Solskjaer's done exceptionally, Paul Ince makes a good point that after Mourinho sort of shafting the players, it probably wasn't as hard a job as a lot would say. So
No, I'm amazed that I have found someone that actually agrees with Paul Ince's statement. I can't buy into it. And the thing is, Paul Ince said that he could have done as good a job, and he got sacked by what, Blackburn, Blackpool, MK Dons, and Macclesfield or something. I think that people aren't giving Solskjaer, and especially Mike Phelan actually, enough credit. And the fact that they're even getting criticism for being unbeaten in 10 games, it's just madness as far as I'm concerned.
Well, for me, right, Di Matteo got sacked from West Bromwich Albion and went on to win the Champions League.
Yeah, but I mean, he then also did get sacked shortly after, and I think with Di Matteo, that was kind of, I guess that was a bit of a freak thing, really. Chelsea were by no means a good team. I don't think they even necessarily played that well. Throughout his time as manager, I think that he just brought that team together. I think if you're watching United, it's unreal.
I think you've got to give it another couple of months before we say that. I think they will lose games under him. I don't think they're a brilliant side as far as Prem history goes, and particularly even the last few years for a top six side. There are squad weaknesses, and they're not gonna be on this form for the rest of the season. I think even as a really optimistic United fan you'd have to admit that.
Well, certainly if the Champions League comes into play, I'm just thinking actually what a cruel twist of fate it would be if United beat Chelsea to that fourth Champions League spot, and then Chelsea won the Europa League and took that. And
who cares?
No, because wouldn't Chelsea then take the Champions League spot?
And United. We can have 5 in the Champions League.
I thought we couldn't. Oh.
After United winning the Europa League yourselves and coming sixth.
I forgot about that. Yeah. How did I forget about that one?
I'm surprised you forget about that.
Maybe I'll cut that out in the edit.
Don't do that, man.
Right, a quick question on Leicester then, before we move on to Guess Who. As you mentioned, I think before, that Claude Pollard isn't that popular amongst the Leicester fans.
No, he's not.
But for a guy that, like, love him or hate him, has managed to really get this club going after the tragedy of losing their owner and the backbone of the football club, does he perhaps not deserve more credit than he's been given?
I think the problems come with, as I said earlier, the lack of consistency. I think the style of football is quite mundane, to be honest. Albeit, yeah, he plays an attacking 4-2-3-1, but it's a lot of passing to no result. And that was also why Southampton disliked him, for the record. I think it's hard, really, when he's a bit of a grey character, the football's dull, to really come out and defend him. I think it's much easier to defend his work at Southampton than at Leicester, to be perfectly honest.
Well, he got them into the EFL Cup final, losing to, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, we're going to move on now from Leicester United, from the reviews entirely, over to Tom Overend for this week's Guess Who.
So I'll explain the rules before we start. It's a series I've done which has really been successful on Twitter, and we're moving it over to this platform. And I'm going to give you 3 clues about a mystery footballer, and you guys have to guess who it is. You can use all the Google or whatever. And I'll reveal the answer at the end of the video once we've done the 2 previews for this week. And you comment your answers. And if you get it right, a big pat in the back from me, because they're never easy. I get a lot of people tell me they're very difficult. And it's just going to see how good of a football fan you are, I suppose. So this week's, I'm just getting it off my paper. I've played with Cavani, Totti, and Dzeko. Not a bad front 3, by the way. The second clue is I've played under Francesco Guidolin, formerly of Swansea City, of course, and Steve McLaren. Sorry, I just have to say that when I say his name, because he's just so easy to roast. Sorry about that. He's won 9 top division titles in his career, and those are big 5 leagues, really, which isn't a bad achievement, I must say.
So not the Scottish League then, obviously.
Not the Scottish League, not any sort of Tin Pot leagues, the Dutch League or something. Yeah. None of that.
So it wasn't with McLaren FC20 then?
Oh, God. We'll have to see. I'm not giving any more away, Josh. Right. But regardless, answer will be at the end of the video. Feel free to comment your answers. And if you get them wrong, I'll always comment back. And if you get it right, congrats, by the way. But now I pass you back to Josh to start our Premiership previews.
Yeah, so just a quick word before we do start. Just drop down your answers in the comments below and let us know if you got it right at the end of the video. But yeah, so preview time. We're going to kick off. Last week we got to roast Tom about Chelsea getting battered by Bournemouth 4-0. And for a multitude of reasons, I'm hoping that we'll have a similar result against Man City. So, Tom, thoughts ahead of that game?
Well, I go into this game against Man City the same way I went into our last game against Man City in November. I'm absolutely cackling it. To be honest, they are so good. They've not been as consistent this year, but they're so good. Last time, though, Chelsea surprised us, albeit at home against these guys. We got them in the cup final in a couple of weeks, so I don't want any embarrassment tomorrow regardless. And I think there are some signs of encouragement for our fans. Obviously, some quite worrying signs. Encouraging signs being that obviously we did do Man City in November, beating them 2-0 at Stamford Bridge. Or it might have been December, pardon me. And I thought we delivered a tactical masterclass that day in Surrey ball and how to stop a Pep side. But then again, away to the top 6 teams, we've done really badly this year. The only time we've beaten one was in the EFL Cup against Liverpool. We've lost to Tottenham, lost to Arsenal, and still have the rest of the top 6 to play away from home. And I think it depends whether we show up or not, and whether the players have some cojones, to be honest.
Would you rather beat Chelsea in the EFL Cup final and miss out on top 4 and lose this match this weekend, or beat them, lose in the cup final and take top 4?
Top 4, obviously. I mean, as much as I love silverware, and I'm not one of these top 4 is a trophy, blah,
Sounds
blah,
like
blah.
it. Mr. Pochettino?
No, because I think in this day and age, with money, with attracting top players, with Hazard likely to leave, we really, really have to be in the Champions League. We're not a Europa League club. I mean, if we won the EFL Cup, won the Europa League, missed out on top 4, so very similar to Jose's first season at United, that would be perfectly fine as far as I'm concerned. But if you're saying just the EFL Cup, no top 4, no Europa League, absolutely not. No.
Okay, fair enough. Last question then on Man City. You said you beat them earlier on in the season. Where are the weaknesses in their squad that Chelsea are able to exploit? Because Chelsea have had such a mixed bag of results recently, getting absolutely battered by Bournemouth, then doing the battering themselves against Huddersfield. So can you see Chelsea maybe replicating their performance against City earlier on in the season, or are there new areas to exploit?
Well, in that game in December, City didn't have Aguero, and I think that is important. Aguero has a knack of scoring against us. He always seems to, which is important for me. I think their main weaknesses lie less in the fact that they play particularly badly, but that tactically they're being found out by other coaches. And by that, I don't mean all top 6 clubs. I think teams are finding ways of parking the bus against them, maybe on the wings. Their wingers sometimes have off days. I'm not saying that Sane and people like De Bruyne and people are bad players. But regardless, maybe their fullbacks as well, sometimes, again, can have off days and can be a bit poor. Regardless, I think if City play full strength and have a good day, I can't really see us beating them, to be honest, but I can hope, I guess.
This is generally the last question. I did lie before. Would you sacrifice losing to City if it meant Liverpool wouldn't win the league? I know what I would think. No?
I want top 4 too badly, man. I want top 4
Fair
too
enough.
badly.
So then, score prediction time. Tom?
2-1 to City.
Yeah, I'm going for the same, actually. I think City still haven't got the strongest defences, but I think they'll still win. So moving on then from a battle of the top 6 to perhaps more of a mid-table struggle, or battle really, with Watford against Everton. Of course, Marco Silva taking his current side Everton to the side that sacked him, one of the sides that sacked him, Watford. So, before we get into previewing the game itself, I want to talk about how Watford have evolved since Marco Silva lost his job at Vicarage Road, and comparing that to how he's done at Everton this season. Because, of course, they're almost mirror situations, really. Starting both seasons off incredibly well, and then petering out ever so quickly. So, I mean, what do you make of that? Watford doing really great things with Javi Gracia at the moment. Everton, as I said, not doing so many good things at this moment in time. Of course, given their hire and fire mentality of recent years, there's who's to say that they're not gonna fire Silva at the end of the season. So what are your thoughts?
So I think Silva is a very short-term coach. I think a lot of people rated him at Hull and then at the start at Watford, where he did incredibly well, as you say. I think he's not really gone to a club expecting long-term chances. I think he's quite arrogant at times, actually. with the fact, oh, I deserve the Everton job, I deserve this, I deserve that. And he doesn't always have a plan B. That would be what I would say. And I don't think his teams have much identity either. The thing with Javi Gracia, which I think has succeeded for Watford, he's immediately given them identity, a shape, a sort of 4-2-2-2 shape that Sky like to call it. And you can tell what their side's going to be, and you can tell the pressing, the style of football, but on the counter that they'll play. And I think that is really, really solid for a club like Watford. They've given him a long-term deal. Watford are not a club known for something like that. So I think, honestly, Gracia's showing what can be done, even in the Prem, for managers with long-term ambition, to be honest.
On to the game itself then. Who do you see having the biggest strength going into this game?
Well, at Vicarage Road, and with a relatively fit squad, to my knowledge, Watford, I think they will have the best chance of winning. I think probably 2 or 3-0, to be honest. Everton have so much talent there. Sigurdsson, and obviously a lot more than that. Andre Gomez, Pickford. But as you were saying earlier, I don't think Marco Silva's getting the best out of them, to be honest.
I think the whole situation at Goodison Park is just laughable. I mean, they tried to poach Marco Silva from Watford last season, and I think it was actually that in itself that kind of threw them off the scent a little bit, put Watford off piste and ended up having a bit of a mediocre finish, really, even worse than mediocre. And then he ends up going to Everton. They throw all this money at him, and they allow him to essentially buy whoever he wanted within reason. And the fact that we're even questioning whether a side that's as big as Everton, with the amount of money they've spent compared to Watford, who I can't remember how much money they did spend, but I can't imagine it was as much as Everton spent. The fact that we're even saying, could this be a win for Watford, says more about Everton than perhaps it does the Hornets. So
yeah,
carry on.
Yeah. As I say, I think there's a template for Marco Silva teams. They'll have a really good first 10 games under him, probably be in the top 6 if you judge just games in Silva's top 10 games. And then it'll go very south very quickly.
Do you think he'll get sacked at the end of the season?
Depends where they come. But if it's 10th or lower, yeah, for sure.
And who do you think could replace him? Big Sam Allardyce, maybe David Moyes again?
God, I think, no, someone from the continent, maybe the chap who's in charge of Red Bull Salzburg, whose name eludes me for the moment.
I can't think. I don't really keep up on German football, so I'm not so sure.
I think it's something Rose is his surname, but I think he's done exceptional work there, and I think he's the sort of man that Everton might go for.
Okay, so again, score predictions. What are you thinking?
3-0 to the Hornets.
Oh wow, I'm going to go for a slightly less ambitious 2-1 there to Watford. So that does round off our reviews and previews. We have to come back though to our centrepiece, the Guess Who. So Tom, do you want to just run through the clues again and then give us the answer?
So he's played under Cavani, or he's played alongside Cavani, Totti and Dzeko. He's played under Steve McLaren and Francesco Guidolin, and he's won 9 top division titles. Our man, of course, and he's in the infamous BBC, the Italian BBC, Andrea Barzagli.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So very well done if you have got that right, and of course leave it in the comments below. Although I don't know how well this is going to work, because you could just put that in the comments without having watched into this video, but we'll give you the benefit of the doubt if you put it in the comments below, and we will give you a shout out on the Guess Who section of next week's show. But until next week's show, unless of course you want to give us a view tomorrow as we launch into our second episode of our Retro Premier League show, where we talk about unfairly sacked managers from the PL era, then it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Tom. Thanks for watching.